Good evening, everyone. It's so good to have you all here. We're going to get ready to start the program in 5 minutes. So please make your way around the stage. Take a look at the table. I just want to bring attention that to the left by the Cuban flag over here, we're asking people in the community to right now, why do we continue to fight to let Cuba live? And so I want to invite folks, if you're able, we have markers there just to write a few notes of encouragement to remind each other why we continue to fight and struggle to let Cuba live. But we're going to start in 5 minutes. Familia, bienvenidos a la iglesia del pueblo. Vamos a empezar en 5 minutos. Solo les pido que caminen y vean la mesa, las mesas van a estar ahí todo el tiempo. Y cuando pueda, en el lado de la bandera, tenemos una pregunta: ¿por qué seguimos luchando para que Cuba pueda vivir? Y le estamos pidiendo a las diferentes personas que puedan compartir sus razones. con la base que más bien en esta noche. So vamos a empezar en 5 minutos. We're going to start in 5 minutes. I invite everyone to make their way to their seats and a lo que encuentren sus asientos, a lo que nos para empezar el programa de esta noche. We would like to let all of our comrades that are here visiting to come and sit down, find your seat. Devin, be my. Yeah. If you need extra seats, Sam and Devin are in the back to help you with extra seats. I don't know how to find their way to their seats. Debemos empezar el programa.
You guys can take pictures. También para que vean el orden.
Okay, good evening. Buenas tardes, yes. Yes, let's get the energy, come on. It's Friday night at the People's Church. Bienvenidos a la iglesia del pueblo. Antes de comenzar, si alguien necesita traducción, sea de inglés, sea de español, if somebody needs translation, Seth, are you in the back with translation? They should see. Put your hands up, Seth. Si alguien necesita traducción o ayuda con el lenguaje, hable con Seth, que está aquí en el medio con sus aparatos. Oh, perfect. Awesome. Porque el programa, la mayoría del programa va a ser en inglés. The majority of the program will be in English, but if you need translation, please see Seth in the back. It is so good to be here. It's so good to have you all here and to have such a very important conversation. I'd like to ask for folks to keep it down as we begin this program and help around that. Thank you so much. And if we can put our phones on silent. This is what I do on Sunday mornings. So please put your phones on silent and so that we can be uninterrupted. Before we begin before we open up the space, I want to take a moment, at the end of October, if you're familiar with it, the Mexican community celebrates Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. And it is a celebration of our ancestors, of people who have come before us, of people who paved the way for the work that we're doing. If you missed it, in the back of the church, we have a beautiful Dia de los Muertos altar. that is a community altar. And so I don't know if you have any mementos, if you have any thoughts, any pictures you may want to add to the altar. But if you don't, I want to take an opportunity for folks to lift up names of ancestors, of people that they want to bring into this space, people that they want to remember, people who have paved the way, who have created this opportunity for us. And so I want to open up that space right now for folks to have a moment of silence, but really to start popcorning and lifting up names of our ancestors, of our elders, of our family members that we want to also honor and bring into this space. Reverend Lucius Walker.
Evelina Antonetti. Doña Rosa Escobar. Doña Adel Favera. Don Luis Miranda.
Aneida Centeno.
Edgardo Román.
Avelino González Claudio.
Jorge Farinacci.
Mariana Colón.
Humberto Ojeda Ríos.
Malcolm X.
Antonio Cruz Colón.
Pablo Soto Navidad.
Glenn Ford.
Fidel Castro.
Camilo Cienfuegos.
El Che.
Aide Santa María.
Vilma Espín. El Hombre Brad. Safia Bukhari.
And to all these names, we say a collective presente. Presente.
Presente.
It is a beautiful gift and an honor to be able to host this very important conversation in a time where our oceans are rising, in a time where violence is rising, where war is rising, where things feel more and more confusing. On top of everything else, solidarity is being criminalized. As the conversation we were having is saying that it was a conversation about how is it that the most basic human right, which is that right of having friends, that right as people of faith that we believe about loving our neighbor, that solidarity is being criminalized and has been criminalized. And we are here on a history of all these organizations in the movements that are fighting for a better world, that are being criminalized for having friends, for choosing to stand with their friends. And so I think that today is a very important conversation around what it means, on a basic level, what it really means to be a friend. What it really means to stand for what we believe and to do so without fear and intimidation. And so I'm looking forward to hearing from each of these panelists. I'm looking forward to being able to do that. For those who are not familiar, this is the First Spanish United Methodist Church, commonly known as the People's Church. In 1969, this building was occupied by the Young Lords, the Puerto Rican counterparts of the Black Panthers, and they wanted to host free breakfast programs, free community programs, and they occupied this space and did just that. And since I have been here 5 years, I've been trying to walk in that legacy, walk in the legacy of freedom fighters like Martin Luther King, like Reverend Lucius Walker, like the Young Lords, as people who believe in fighting for change. And so this church is a symbol of resistance here in El Barrio. It's a symbol of what people power can do. And if you've seen any of the work that this church has been doing just in the last few years, you'll see that it is the people power that really is our strength, that really is our source, that really continues to guide and move us in this call to build a better world. And so what better place to be able to host this conversation and to begin this week of events that are happening in solidarity with Cuba as we get towards the days that the United Nations will vote yet once again about the inhumanity of this blockade. I wanted to share briefly, I don't see Ike right now. Oh, there he is. Ike, come really quickly because he has a couple of other announcements really quick. And then I'm going to give some short bios and we're going to hear from our panelists.
Thank you. Tomorrow morning, 12 o'clock, 46th and Broadway, we're going to be gathering in Times Square to march against this cruel blockade and to give our solidarity with Cuba and the world, standing with the world. Please come tomorrow. I know a lot of you are going to be there. We're going to march down 42nd Street to Ralph Bunche Park. We're going to have a rally at Ralph Bunche Park, and then we're going to end. We have a wonderful program, including Sister Milagros and many others. It'll be a great program. And then we're going to end by going to the U.S. mission to the United Nations, because we are not protesting the United Nations. We are standing with the world against the blockade. So we're going to end our protest, make a lot of noise. We have a sound permit at the U.S. mission, and we're going to make a lot of noise and protest against the blockade. So see you all tomorrow. Thank you.
All right, now we're going to need a little more energy than that. And we're going to move it calmly and we're loud. And I know it can be loud. So please. We're gonna hear from each of the panelists. Each of the panelists will represent particular organizations that have a particular history of relationship to the ways that they have been, targeted by the FBI. And then we're gonna open it up for a Q&A discussion. And first, we would like to start by introducing our beloved sister Milagros Rivera Perez. While the nationalist revolt of October 1950 was taking place, when the independence fighters took the town of Jayuya, Milagros Rivera was born in Rio Piedra, a municipality of San Juan in Puerto Rico. To that historical coincidence attributes to her rebellious and sovereign spirit. Among the most fraternal people with Cuba that there is in the world is this Puerto Rican who directs the Juan Luis Rivera Brigade and the Committee of Solidarity with the island of Puerto Rico. The former university leader and founder of the Puerto Rican Socialist Party has made common cause with Cubans for the release of the 5 heroes and the elimination of the blockade. She spends time between her functions in the most important Puerto Rican union, the UTIER, to travel each year with her companions from the Juan Luis Rivera Brigade to the greater Antilles. More than 1,700 of her compatriots have learned about the Cuban reality through this channel, and she does a lot to bring them together and guide them to Cuba. So let's give Milagros a hand. Yes, she's here away from the weekend, so we're not going to have her. Our next panelist is a distinguished Gail Walker, who has worked with IFCO, the Interreligious Foundation for Community Organization. Yes, she's been this director. She's worked on all the jobs that IFCO has probably had. Gail has done, but officially on paper, she was the communications director from 1987 to 2002. where she co-led an IFCO delegation to Nicaragua that resulted in the formation of the Pastors for Peace project. After working as a journalist and communications professional in print, video, and radio, Gail returned to IFCO as executive director in 2011, and under her direction, IFCO staff have organized many Cuba friendshipment caravans and educational delegations to Cuba. IFCO has also continued to facilitate the process of dozens of United States students to study medicine in Cuba under full scholarship and to expand its support for grassroots organizations working for social justice. We're glad that Gail Walker is here represented. And our next panelist is Oronde Lumumba Shakur. Yes. Come on, it's too early in the day. Brother Shakur is a member of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement based in New York. He was born and raised in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, New York. During the Vietnam era and while in the military, he was exposed to Black nationalist consciousness that led to his forced separation from the U.S. military. In college, he became involved with veteran issues and was a co-founder of Black Veterans for Social Justice. He was a member of the Black United Front. In 1980, he joined the African People's Socialist Party, where he attended the first African People's Socialist Party Congress in Oakland, California. In 1981, he worked to build and bring the first tribunal on reparations to African people in the United States in Brooklyn. This is one of 11 other tribunals held across the nation that has made reparations demands a household word in the African working class community. He's currently a proud member of the International People's Democratic Uhuru Movement, which is one of the African People's Socialist Party's mass organization tasked with bringing the African working class back into revolutionary political life as we work towards a liberated and united African nation on the continent of Africa. So we're grateful for you to be here with us, brother. Thank you so much. And next up, we have our very own Professor Anna Lopez. Professor Lopez is a long-time human rights and Puerto Rican independence activist and advocate in the New York Puerto Rican diaspora. She's been an educator for 34 years, bilingual curriculum developer for secondary education, and is a professor of the Humanities Department of Eugenio Maria de Hostos of the City University of New York in the South Bronx. She's a writer, a journalist, a political analyst, and a strategist for building human rights freedom campaigns, and like the National Committee to Free Puerto Rican Political Prisoners. She's a member and activist in the former Movimiento de Liberación Nacional, and the coordinator to free the Oscar Lopez Rivera in New York City through 2012 to 2017. Is a founding member of the 35 Women for Oscar New York City, is an organizer for community empowerment, designer of different organizing models for community development, organizer for coalitions in human rights, labor, and social justice, and grassroots community organizing for more than 45 years. What a gift to have you here, Professor. Thank you so much. And last but not least, we have Brother Martin Coco, who was a member of the Socialist Workers' Party. He interviewed pro-independence leader Rafael Cancel Miranda for the booklet, Puerto Rico, Independence is a Necessity, and is the editor of the Spanish translation of the book, 50 Years of Covert Operations in the U.S. Washington's Political Police and the American Working Class. Both published by Pathfinder Press, Martin is active in the Cuba Sea Coalition here in New York. We're so glad to have you here. So we have a great event scheduled for us tonight, great conversation, great community opportunity for us. And without further ado, I want to invite Sister Milagros Rivera Perez to share her remarks.
Esto va a estar fuera del librero. Me asustaron con el frío de Nueva York, pero hoy me convenzo más de que somos Caribe, porque no lo he sentido. Así que gracias por la invitación. Bueno, buenas noches a todas y a todos. Confiando en la comprensión de ustedes, les hablaré en el idioma oficial que ha impuesto la resistencia en Puerto Rico, el español con traducción al inglés que hará la profesora Santana, colaboradora del Comité de Solidaridad con Cuba y vitalista de la Ramón Rivera. Así todos podrán entender nuestro mensaje.
Good evening. Trusting in your understanding, I will speak to you the official language that the resistance has imposed in Puerto Rico, Spanish, with an English translation that will be done by Professor Santana, a collaborator of the Comité de Solidaridad with Cuba and a member of the Juan Cruz Rivera Brigade, so that everyone will be able to understand our message.
En primer lugar, nuestro profundo agradecimiento por invitarnos a esta actividad para denunciar el acoso del FBI a nuestra brigada y por todas las presiones de apoyo recibidas. Participar en una actividad auspiciada por varias organizaciones y grupos en Nueva York nos anima en esta larga lucha libertaria que llevamos los puertorriqueños y las puertorriqueñas. Somos fieles creyentes de que la unidad en la diversidad nos fortalece y que la solidaridad entre los pueblos es una bandera que debemos mantener en alto por encima de cualquier adversidad, amenaza o situación. Por ello, les reiteramos las gracias. Un saludo muy especial a los otros panelistas que me honran con su participación. Somos una sola voz ante la maldad imperial y todos y todas levantaremos la bandera de la solidaridad con Cuba, Puerto Rico y la humanidad.
First of all, our deep gratitude for inviting us to this activity to denounce the FBI's harassment of our brigade and for all of the expressions of support received. Participation in an activity sponsored by a variety of organizations and groups in New York encourages us in this long struggle for freedom that Puerto Ricans are carrying out. We are faithful believers that unity in diversity strengthens us, and that solidarity among peoples is a flag that we must hold high above any adversity, threat, or situation. For this, we thank you again. A very special greeting to the other panelists who honor me with their participation. We are one voice in the face of imperial evil, and we will all raise the flag of solidarity with Cuba, with Puerto Rico, and humanity.
Segundo, y no menos importante, quiero dedicar mi presencia en Nueva York a un hermano que perdimos físicamente, pero que jamás olvidaremos, al compañero Fran Vergara, que siempre estará presente en la lucha libertaria de Puerto Rico, en la solidaridad con Cuba y con toda causa justa.
Second, and more less important, I want to dedicate my presence in New York to a brother that we physically lost, but will never forget, Comrade Frank Vergara, who will always be present in the liberation struggle of Puerto Rico, in solidarity with Cuba and with every just cause.
Lamentablemente, debo añadir en esta dedicatoria a otros dos luchadores que acabamos de perder hace unos días. Me refiero al licenciado Edgardo Román Espada, presidente del Comité de los Derechos Humanos de Puerto Rico, y que estuvo acompañándonos desde el día 1 de este acoso del FBI a la brigada, y la querida hermana en la lucha del Partido Nacionalista de Puerto Rico, Aleida Centeno, una de las lolitas nuestras.
Unfortunately, I must add to the dedication two other comrades that we just lost a few days ago. I am referring to attorney Edgardo Román Espada, president of the Comité for Human Rights of Puerto Rico, and who had been accompanying us since day one of this FBI harassment of the brigade. And to dear sister in the struggle from the Nationalist Party of Puerto Rico, Aleida Centeno, one of our abuelitas.
Para los tres, no solicito un minuto de silencio, sino el compromiso de toda una vida de lucha y que lo honremos en estos momentos con un fuerte aplauso. Juan Vergara, presente. Orlando Román, presente. María Sendero, presente. El FBI en Puerto Rico tiene un largo historial de persecuciones contra los sectores independentistas y tiene las manos ensangrentadas con el asesinato de Filiberto de Ríos el 23 de septiembre de 2005, a 20 años de su descarada invasión a nuestros hogares. Recuerdo claramente las acciones del FBI en Puerto Rico cuando invadió ilegalmente decenas de hogares el 30 de octubre de 1985 para arrestar parte del grupo de los macheteros. Fuimos testigos de cómo invadieron la comunidad donde resido y los abusos que se cometieron. Así que del FBI que se dedica a perseguir a los que luchan, no nos sorprende nada ni su acoso a la brigada. De vez en cuando hace un aguaje con los políticos corruptos, pero en definitiva el FBI es la policía política del gobierno de los Estados Unidos para mantener el orden imperial.
The FBI has a long history in Puerto Rico of persecuting pro-independence sectors, and its hands are bloody with the murder of Filiberto Ojeda Rios on September 23, 2005. 20 years after the agency's brazen invasion of our homes. I clearly remember the actions of the FBI in Puerto Rico when it illegally invaded dozens of homes on October 30th, 1985, to arrest part of the group of machateros. We witnessed how the community where I lived was invaded and the abuses that were committed. So as far as the actions of the FBI, which is dedicated to persecuting those who struggle, nothing surprises us. Not even the harassment of the Brigade. From time to time, they make a fuss against corrupt politicians. But ultimately, the FBI is the political police of the United States government to maintain the imperial order.
La Brigada Manuel Rivera se constituyó en el 1991 y la 31ª Brigada viajó a Cuba en julio de este año por un mes. Tratamos de cumplir los programas de brigada del 2020 y la del 2021, que no pudieron viajar por la pandemia, pero que las mantuvimos vivas basada en la concepción de que la brigada no es solamente un viaje a Cuba, sino un proyecto de solidaridad. Esta última brigada de julio del 2022, por haber tenido que vencer tantas dificultades, la llamamos la Brigada de la Victoria y se la dedicamos al héroe de nuestra patria, Oscar López Rivera, y a los 5 antiterroristas cubanos, Antonio, Gerardo, Fernando, Ramón y René. Logramos en el primer acto de la brigada juntar a los 5 con Oscar en el centro Fidel Castro Cruz, reconocer a los médicos cubanos y recordar a otro de nuestros héroes, Rafael Cancel Miranda. Eso debe haber molestado bastante a los imperialistas y sus lagarios.
The Juan Rios Rivera Brigade was established in 1991, and the 31st Brigade traveled to Cuba in July of this year for a month. We tried to fulfill the programs of the 2020 and 2021 brigades, which were unable to travel due to the pandemic. But we kept them alive based on the idea that the brigade is not just a trip to Cuba, but it is a solidarity project. This last brigade of July 2022, for having had to overcome so many difficulties, we call it the Victory Brigade, and we dedicate it to the hero of our country, Oscar López Rivera, and to the 5 Cuban anti-terrorists, Antonio, Gerardo, Fernando, Ramon, and René. On the first act of the brigade, we managed to bring the 5 together with Oscar at the Fidel Castro Cruz Center, recognize the Cuban doctors, and remember another of our heroes, Rafael Cancel Miranda. That must have quite upset the imperialists and their lackeys.
Todo el programa de la brigada es público y sus memorias están expuestas en las redes sociales. Las donaciones que legítimamente recaudamos son llevadas por la brigada por mucha dificultad debido a las limitaciones de poder viajar libre y normalmente a Cuba por la condición colonial de Puerto Rico. Pero no son relaciones comerciales ni prohibidas ni ilegales. Son acciones legítimas y el desafío a las leyes del bloqueo. Intentar criminalizar la solidaridad es otro acto terrorista para que impone el criminal bloqueo al pueblo cubano. El gobierno de los Estados Unidos es un gobierno terrorista y criminal.
The entire program of the brigade is public, and its memories are published on social networks. The donations that we legitimately collected are carried by the brigade with great difficulty due to the limitations of not being able to travel freely and normally with Cuba, and also due to our colonized condition in Puerto Rico. But they are not commercial relationships, and so they are not prohibited or illegal. They are legitimate actors, and they are in defiance of the blockade laws. Trying to criminalize solidarity is another terrorist act for those who impose a criminal blockade on the Cuban people. The government of the United States is a terrorist and criminal government.
Al llegar la brigada a Puerto Rico, el Comité de Solidaridad con Cuba comienza a preparar el encuentro de brigadistas que ayuda a completar las acciones solidarias posteriores a día. A pocos días de nuestra llegada, el 5 de agosto, sucedió la tragedia en el supertanquero de Matanzas y casi de inmediato iniciamos una colecta nacional. La misma se hizo pública el 11 de agosto y el viernes 12 llamaron desde los Estados Unidos, todavía no sabemos quién, y nos cerraron la cuenta bancaria, impidiendo la aportación que miles de boricuas hubieran hecho para Cuba ante la terrible tragedia.
When the brigade arrived to Puerto Rico, the Solidarity with Cuba Committee begins to prepare a reunion to the brigade members, which helps to carry out solidarity actions with the trip. A few days after our arrival, on August 5th, the tragedy occurred in the supertank in Matanzas, and almost immediately we started a national collection. It was made public on August 11th, and on Friday, August 12th, someone called from the United States, we still don't know who, and they closed our bank account, preventing the contribution of the thousands of Puerto Ricans who would have made to Cuba in the face of this terrible tragedy.
Al poco tiempo, del 23 al 26 de agosto, comenzó el FBI un operativo en el punto de la isla para visitar brigadistas o llamarlos para investigar si habían viajado con la brigada María Rivera, si conocían a María Milagro Rivera, esa soy yo, que estaban investigando violaciones a una ley federal, pero nunca decían cuál. Les decían que querían hablar con ellos en otros lugares tranquilos, tomándose un café, como si planificaran un secuestro, que investigaban que la brigada estaba infiltrada por la gente de la ciudad cubana, entre otras sandeces.
Shortly after, from August 23rd to August 26th, the FBI began an operation in different parts of the island to visit brigade members or telephone them to investigate if they had traveled with the Juan Rivera Brigade, if they knew Maria Milagros, which is Milagros, who they were investigating, violations of a federal law, but they never said which one. They told the brigade members that they wanted to talk to them in some other quiet place to have a coffee, as if they were planning a kidnapping. That they were investigating that the brigade was infiltrated by Cuban security agents, among other such nonsense.
Algunos de ellos no querían ni siquiera identificarse y le hablaban de citaciones informales a los brigadistas. La realidad era que estaban en un operativo de intimidación a los brigadistas, preparando una fabricación de un caso contra el dirigente de la brigada y del comité, así como tratando de minar la participación de las personas en otras brigadas, criminalizando los viajes a Cuba y la solidaridad.
Some of the agents did not even want to identify themselves, and they spoke of informal summons to the brigade members. The reality was that they were doing an operation to intimidate the brigade members, preparing a fabrication of a case against leaders of the brigade and the committee, as well as trying to undermine the participation of people in future brigades, criminalizing trips to Cuba and solidarity.
Visitaron o llamaron a más de 60 personas en San Juan, Baja, Carolina, Humacao, Patillas, Ponce, Calley, Utuado, entre otros lugares donde residen los brigadistas. Trataron de entrevistar jóvenes de nuestra delegación cultural, creando un ambiente de intimidación con los padres y madres. Visitaron y llamaron también a algunas personas del Comité de Solidaridad con Cuba que no habían viajado con la brigada, tratando de hacerles creer que otra persona entrevistada los había identificado como organizadores de la brigada. Debe haber costado bastante dinero esos 4 días de acoso a los brigadistas, entre 12 y 15 agentes del FBI. Ahora bien, lo que no contaba esa pandilla del FBI era las respuestas rápidas del Comité de Solidaridad con Cuba, la solidaridad recibida y la disciplina de los integrantes de la brigada.
They visited or called more than 60 people in San Juan, Toa Baja, Carolina, Humacao, Patillas, Ponce, Calley, and Utuado, among other places where the brigadistas reside. They tried to interview young people from our cultural delegates, creating an atmosphere of intimidation with their fathers and their mothers. They also visited and called some people from the Comité de Solidarity with Cuba who had not traveled to the brigade, trying to make them believe that another person interviewed had identified them as organizers of the brigade. These 4 days of harassment with the brigade members by 12 to 15 FBI agents must have cost a lot of money. Now, what the FBI gang did not count on was the quick response of the Comité for Solidarity with Cuba, the solidarity received, and the discipline of the members of the brigade.
Desde el primer momento que conocimos este operativo del FBI, nos asesoraron legalmente e hicimos expresiones públicas. Los brigadistas siguieron las instrucciones. La principal era que nada tenían que hablar con el FBI, que cualquier citación tenía que ser formal y no mediante llamadas ni en papelitos arrancados de las libretas de notas. En los reportes recibidos y que entregamos a los asesores legales demuestran la conducta firme de los brigadistas. Al momento que tengamos conocimiento, nadie se prestó para ayudar en su llamada investigación que iba dirigida a la fabricación de un caso para tratar de minar la solidaridad con Cuba desde Puerto Rico. Toda la brigada repudió este intento del FBI acusándonos en nuestros hogares.
From the first moment that we learned about this FBI operation, we sought legal advice and made public statements. The brigadistas followed the instructions, the main one being that they had nothing to talk about with the FBI. That any summons had to be formal and not by means of phone calls or on pieces of paper torn from notebooks. The reports received and that we delivered to our legal advisors showed the firm conduct of the brigade members. Now, at this moment, as far as we know, nobody lent themselves to help the FBI in their so-called investigation, which was aimed at fabricating a case to try to undermine solidarity with Cuba from Puerto Rico. The entire brigade repudiated this attempt by the FBI to harass us in our homes.
Reclamamos apoyo nacional e internacional y la respuesta nos hizo esperar, incluyendo la de muchos de ustedes. Aquí quiero destacar el gran apoyo recibido de los compañeros y compañeras de militantes que se mantuvieron denunciando la situación y que viajaron a Puerto Rico en esos días. Gracias por decir presente y mantener la denuncia viva. Gracias a toda la diáspora que lucha por la libertad y al movimiento de solidaridad con Cuba en los Estados Unidos, Canadá y la red continental latinoamericana y caribeña por tantas muestras de solidaridad con la brigada y a su vez con la causa libertaria de Puerto Rico.
We gathered national and international support, and the response was immediate, including from many of you. Here I want to highlight the great support received from the compañeros y compañeras del militante, who kept denouncing the situation and traveled to Puerto Rico in those days. Thank you for staying presente and keeping the protest alive. Thanks to all of the diaspora that struggles for freedom and to the solidarity movement with Cuba in the United States, Canada, and Latin American and Caribbean Continental Network for so many demonstrations of solidarity with the Brigade and in turn with the liberation cause of Puerto Rico.
El Comité Pro Derechos Humanos de Puerto Rico organizó una concurrida conferencia de prensa y recibimos el apoyo de más de 60 organizaciones nacionales e internacionales. Desde Cuba se multiplicó la solidaridad y desde la red continental latinoamericana y caribeña de solidaridad con Cuba también. La denuncia de ustedes en los propios Estados Unidos fue fundamental para frenar este abuso contra la militancia solidaria en Puerto Rico. En resumen, por el momento pudimos detener el operativo.
The Puerto Rico Human Rights Committee organized a well-attended press conference, and we received the support of more than 60 national and international organizations. Solidarity multiplied from Cuba and from the Latin American Caribbean Continental Network of Solidarity with Cuba, as well as your denunciation here in the United States, was essential to stop this abuse against solidarity militancy in Puerto Rico. To sum up, for the moment, we have been able to stop the operation.
Pero los caribeños y caribeñas conocemos cómo es el ojo del huracán. Aparente calma para golpear más duro. Sabemos que haber detenido temporalmente al FBI por la denuncia pública en su acoso a nuestra gente no necesariamente significa que dejará ese empeño de persecución para seguir intentando criminalizar la sociedad con Cuba en Puerto Rico y también en los Estados Unidos. Ustedes tienen vasta experiencia con esas persecuciones.
But the Caribbean and the women know when the eye of the hurricane is like. There is an apparent calm, and then it hits harder. We know that having temporarily stopped the FBI with the public denunciation of its harassment of our people does not necessarily mean that stop pursuing the campaign of persecution to continue trying to criminalize solidarity with Cuba and Puerto Rico. And also in the United States, you have vast experience with this persecution.
Para que no nos sorprenda más adelante, el Comité de Solidaridad con Cuba ha decidido, junto a otras organizaciones, desarrollar una campaña para sentar en el banquillo de los acusados al FBI ante el pueblo. Denunciar sus persecuciones y crímenes es mandatorio y no bajar la guardia. Recabar que todas sus voces nos ayuden a parar esta infamia contra la solidaridad con Cuba y nos mantenemos firmes en organizar la próxima brigada que tendrá un gran monte de la red continental en Santiago de Cuba el 26 de julio al cumplirse los 70 años de Moncada y los 125 años de la invasión yanqui a Puerto Rico. A ustedes también les invitamos para encontrarnos todos en Santiago de Cuba el 26 de julio de 2023.
So that we will not be surprised later, the Comité de Solidarity with Cuba has decided, together with other organizations, to develop a campaign to put the FBI on the dock of the accused before the people.
That's right.
Denouncing the persecution and crimes is mandatory, and do not let your guard down. We call on all voices to help us stop this infamy against solidarity with Cuba, and we remain firm in organizing the next brigade that will have a great meeting of the Continental Network in Santiago de Cuba on July 26, 2023. It's the 70th anniversary of Moncada and the 125th anniversary of the Yankee invasion of Puerto Rico. We can also invite you to meet us all in Santiago de Cuba on July 26, 2023.
El imperio tiene un plan. Nosotros tenemos el nuestro, que recoge en esencia lo expresado por José Martí en 1892 y que aplica muy bien al caso de la lucha libertaria de Puerto Rico de hoy y citamos. A un plan obedece nuestro enemigo, de enconarnos, dispersarnos, dividirnos, ahogarnos. Por eso obedecemos nosotros a otro plan. Enseñarnos en toda nuestra altura, apretarnos, juntarnos, burlarlo, hacer por fin a nuestra patria libre. Plan contra plan. Cierro la cita de José Martí.
The empire has a plan, and we have our plan. That essentially includes what was expressed by José Martí in 1892 and applies very well to the case of liberation struggle in Puerto Rico today, and we quote, "Our enemy obeys a plan to enrage us, dispense with us, divide us, drown us. This is why we obey another plan. Teach ourselves up to our full height, embrace us, join us, thwart them, finally make our homeland free. Plan against plan." Close quote.
Nuestro plan, en términos generales, será seguir la lucha, más unidos, coordinados y dando golpes certeros hasta lograr eliminar ese criminal bloqueo que es el acto genocida más largo de la historia contra el pueblo latino. En el caso particular de Puerto Rico, invadido por los Estados Unidos hace 124 años, seguiremos luchando por la libertad de nuestra patria, la igualdad social y defenderemos con fuerza el legado de la solidaridad recíproca y centenaria entre el pueblo humano y el puertorriqueño. El FBI nos va a amedrentar.
Our plan, in general terms, will be to continue the struggle more united, coordinated, and delivering accurate blows until we manage to eliminate the criminal blockade that is the longest genocidal act in history against any people.
That's right.
In the particular case of Puerto Rico, invaded by the United States 124 years ago, we will continue to fight for the freedom of our homeland, social equality, and we will vigorously defend the legacy of reciprocal and centuries-old solidarity between Cuban and Puerto Rican people. The FBI will not intimidate us.
That's right.
Ningún imperio va a impedir la solidaridad entre Cuba y Puerto Rico. Ningún imperio va a derrotar la unidad de los pueblos. Por eso estamos aquí, para abrazarnos en la lucha y hermandad. Muchas gracias, los pueblos unidos frente al imperio venceremos. ¡Viva Cuba! ¡Cese el bloqueo! ¡Viva Puerto Rico libre! Y termino diciendo, independencia para Puerto Rico, independencia para Puerto Rico, independencia para Puerto Rico. Gracias.
All right, was that an inspiring message or what? I really want to thank the organizers of tonight's event because this is a really important conversation for us to be engaged in at this moment and historically, and why we have to keep fighting. The fierceness of this sister is just, it comes through every time we hear from our sister Milagros, and I'm just so grateful for what you and the compañeros in Puerto Rico represent in this continuous struggle that we're all engaged in to support our family and friends in Cuba. So gracias. Muchísimas gracias. time tonight. I just wanted to say I'm honored to be able to be a part of this program as we talk about the significance and the importance of resistance. I am a vessel to be able to talk about some of the history, some of the historical connections that IFCO, the Interreligious Foundation for Community Organization, has had as it relates to fighting the empire and being attacked by the alphabet soup of agencies within the U.S. government when it comes to standing up for what's right. IFCO was an organization formed in 1967 by progressive clergy and activists who wanted to be able to really lift up injustice through the lens of fighting through our own beliefs and our own faith, not allowing the religious right to dictate the conversation, but to say that we as people of faith, we as people of conscience have a right and responsibility to stand up and to speak out against injustice. And that's really been a part of who we've been as an organization since 1967. 2 years after that, our founding was the first attack by the FBI on Israel. I was just a child, a mere child, so I wasn't there, but I read a lot about it. But the FBI was very keen on trying to really undermine the efforts of IFCO and other progressive faith-based organizations. And we've continued to survive those attacks, whether it be the IRS or it was the FBI or OFAC. There's an alphabet soup, right? The entity within Treasury who implements the blockade policies. They've all kind of come at us in different ways, and we've continued as people of conscience and people of faith to stand up and push back and say, we don't accept that. And I don't mean to suggest that all this was, done simply by the efforts of IFCO, certainly not by myself or by my father before us, who preceded me as a director. It's really been because of the community support that we've always received. And there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that IFCO would not still have its doors open if it were not for the outpouring of love and support of our international community. The IRS came at us again, well, right now, they're trying to come at us again, but I can't even keep track, somebody tell me, was it 2000? I mean, literally the dates just kind of all flow together, but the point is that the IRS at different times tried to just undermine us. They took away our tax exempt status for a period of time that was eventually returned after a long struggle. And again, it wasn't just because of the people in the IFCO office, but it was because of our international support and family. And I can't understate how important that is. And I think that that's certainly the case when we look at what our friends in Puerto Rico, what our friends in the Uhuru movement have had to engage in. We have got to stand in solidarity with one another.
That's right, yeah, that's right.
And I say that. I say, and I've said, we've written statements, we've made phone calls that we at IFCO Passenger Peace understand what it means to weather those kinds of attacks, and we're committed to continuing to stand in solidarity, not only with our friends that are standing in solidarity with Cuba, but those that really are clear about what it means to express our united justice. So we're here together. I'm looking forward to having a robust conversation, dialogue. I just want to say that I do believe that the only way that we're going to really push back against this kind of, just this aggression of the U.S. empire is only if we gather together, we speak out, we educate people about these actions, and we collaborate on ways that we can continue to lift up the injustice and talk about our rights to be able to educate our friends, our family, our community about the impact of this kind of government aggression and our commitment to continue to do the work that we do to support our family and friends in Cuba. So I'm looking forward to a conversation with one another, but thank you so much. Thank you, Anna, thank you, the Socialist Workers Party, all who have helped to organize tonight's activity, this important conversation that I hope will go much further than just here tonight. Looking forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Just let me say, this revolutionary demand that we use in our organization, it's called Uhuru. Right. Uhuru means freedom, peace, Swahili. And we say that among ourselves, in our organization, in our conversations, our phone calls, our meetings, because we understand that freedom has to be on the minds of African people 24/7, 365. In order for us to gain that peace and prosperity that we all desire, we have to make revolution. You know what I mean? We call it peace through revolution. Because a lot of people have a funny feeling when you talk about revolution. They see all this bloodshed, guns and bombs, etc. That's a very small part of revolution. Because revolution is a transformation process of a colonized people beginning to organize themselves to overturn their relationship with the colonizer, whoever they may be and wherever they may be. And our work is geared with the African working class. And we understand who we are, and we understand that there's a class contradiction in our own community. So we clear on who we are and what our organization's mission is, and who should lead that revolution, and that is the African working class. Might as well, because if you look at history, it's been that class, here and abroad, who has led most of a lot of the progressive movements in the world. And what's different today than it was days past is the day we have the African People's Socialist Party, a revolutionary working class, still in revolutionary struggle for over 50 years to lead this struggle of African people around the world. And we take on that task with pride. And we take it on with determination. And relentlessness in our struggle to gain Uhuru. Not just for ourselves, but for the entire planet. Because another thing revolution is love. Revolution is about love of self, love of others, love of the planet, love of the relationships that we can have, that we're struggling to have with ourselves, to build a world without oppression, without exploitation, without wars, that we can use our energies and our talents to transform this world for everyone, to live in freedom and self-determination, prosperity and happiness, sharing together as one. That's our goal and our mission. And, on July 29th of this year, people have talked about it, that agency called the FBI. And we're not confused. We know the FBI is part of the United States government. It's an agency of the United States government. That means Biden and Kamala Harris, who this would have went down if they weren't aware of it. So it's not just the FBI, though we got a long history with this agency, with Marcus Garvey, the FBI learned its lessons and sharpened its teeth by attacking the Garvey movement. And they attacked the Garvey movement because one, it was a working class organization, and two, it was the largest African working class organization that was organized all around the world. And some of the things they talked about tonight already about the tactics of the colonial state through the FBI, and the rulers make the rules. And we know that the laws in this land is nothing but the opinion of the ruling class. So they have the ability to criminalize people, organizations, individuals, etc. And they will use any tool in their toolbox to make that happen. In this instance, the boogeyman is the Russians. That the Russians made us do it. That the Russians told us that we were oppressed, colonized, and that we need Uhuru, that we need freedom. I don't even know if the Russians know what Uhuru means, but that was created by the African working class. As a revolutionary demand for our whole nation. And this government, this whole social system, came into existence at the expense of the African nation through slavery and genocide, and exploiting Africans all over the world to build this edifice they call America, which is nothing but a colonial capitalist parasitic social system that must be destroyed through revolution, through love, if you have. You know what I mean? And that's the love of the people. Because in America, there's no such thing as the power of the people. You know what I mean? The power lies in the hands of the ruling class and all its agencies in the state that it operates. And I know in a couple of weeks, the ruling class is going to have this 4-year election to determine which ruling class is going to take control of the state apparatus to push out their agenda as opposed to the other ruling class, whether it's Democrats, Republicans, etc. And, so the attack on July 29th, and prior to that, I might add, I think it was on their Independence Day, the 4th of July, we call it, someone in Florida, where we have the headquarters of Uhuru House, all our headquarters are called Uhuru Houses. And someone just drove their vehicle up to the building, and in our Uhuru House, we got a 50-foot flagpole with the RPG flag flying 24/7. And this individual went in the trunk of his car and he pulled out a military-grade flamethrower. A young African, he just happened to have a military, grade flamethrower, and he burnt the flag. And, and someone in the building came out and ran. And of course, we went through procedures and authorities, and they said it wasn't a crime, and they don't know who done it, why he did it, etc. But we know who did it, the same people who came at us on the July 29th. It was the same people who came at us on July 4th. And they didn't just do that haphazardly because they didn't have nothing better to do, or they said, let's pick some organization, any organization, and let's go and attack them. They attack where they see the strength of the resistance at it. You know what I mean? And even when this imperialist empire, if you want to call it, this colonial capitalist parasitic system decided to attack our organization, they attacked it based on their fear of us. And what we were doing in the African community in St. Petersburg, and also in St. Louis. Ferguson, St. Louis. You remember Mike Brown, the assassination of Mike Brown, when all the media and the hustlers and came and they got media coverage and in the newspaper, etc. And then they left. But the party, the African People's Socialist Party, went to Ferguson because we heard the people say, kill the police. There was a saying, hands up, don't shoot. They said, kill the police. And that's when the chairman was told that he needed to go there, and provide leadership to that movement, because that's a sign of the African working class coming to its own again, like it was in the 1960s. So we went there and, build relations with the people in the hood, on the street corners, those young people that the police like to make target practice of, and organize them into a formal resistance movement in Ferguson, St. Louis. And if you go to St. Louis, in that area is the poorest part of St. Louis. The dilapidated buildings, children have to play basketball in the streets, in the traffic, etc. And when they saw that we built, this is a real, ironic thing, we built a basketball court. You understand? The colonizers like to see Africans play basketball. And they like to pay some of us a lot of money to play basketball and to keep them entertained and to keep us entertained and distracted. But when you build a basketball court in the colors of the red, black, and green African liberation flag, basketball no longer is basketball. That's a process of organization, of education, of transformation. Not only was it the dilapidated buildings removed that was falling down, it was a hazard to the community, but it was transformed into a play area for young people. And not just basketball is going to be going on in that court. You know what I mean? Education is part of basketball. Strategy is part of basketball. Chess is part of the things that we're teaching our young people about strategies, tactics, and how to win. You know what I mean? So we build a African street market where vendors in that community come to share among themselves and keeping the dollars in that community. We had a political campaign where we ran one of our members to one of the altar seats in that area. You know, a young sister who was the head of the P-Dom, who was won into the movement when the chairman and the party and the movement went into Ferguson. And we want a lot of people to the movement and change their perspective on waiting for neo-colonialists to do something for them, or the politicians to do something for them, and we're teaching them to do the stuff that we have the ability to do for ourselves, that we have the ability to free ourselves. Because nobody's going to free us but us. If we're going to realize Uhuru, we have to bring that Uhuru ourselves. It's a mindset. And we use what our revolutionary theory is called African internationalism. And what it is, though they attacked Garvey and deported Garvey and killed off revolutionaries, like Fred Hampton said, you can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolutionary spirit of the people. I don't know how long it takes, but that spirit, that desire, that self-determination to be free, it could be 50 years from now, etc. But the people's desire for self-determination, freedom, and self-governance without the interference of anyone else in their affairs is what the people want. And what the people want is what the people will organize and fight to get. The Uhuru. We're not, and will not be intimidated by the FBI, CIA, NSA, and everybody else. You know what I mean? We don't retreat, we build. You know what I mean? We don't surrender, and we don't compromise our revolutionary principles. And that's why an event like tonight, we get revolutionary solidarity on an international level is important. It's important to us, it's important to you, it's important to every freedom loving people on the planet Earth. And by the way, while we talk about planet Earth, the reason we have to get free and get control over our lives is because this system, this parasitic capitalist system is not just destroying the lives of our people, but it's destroying the very planet we all depend on to live. You know what I mean? All these contradictions that we have is because of the economic system we're forced to live under. You know what I mean? So we have a table, I'm getting the yoke, we have a table over there. If you want to get involved in solidarity, revolutionary solidarity with the African People's Socialist Party, the Uhuru movement, because we're going to have to fight to maintain ourselves as they try to do what they did in the past to make us use resources that we need to build programs to fight them in their cause. So if you go to our table after this, we can inform you about some of the things you can do. There's a whole campaign, hands off the rule, and also hands off Africa, because that's the same understanding we have to have, is that when Africa is free, we're going to use Africa to help free all of humanity. And Africa is the wealth of Europe and America, etc. You know what I mean? Every day, tons and tons of natural resources is being taken out of Africa while the people are starving and going to France, England, America, and etc. And that has to stop. And unless we can able to do that, we're still going to have to deal with this system based on their ability to have the resources to keep us, fighting, losing the battle. So I want to appreciate everybody here tonight who coming out, to hear our story. We hope that you get involved with us and support the campaign. Hands off Uhuru, hands off Africa, Uhuru.
I want to thank our comrade Milagros, our comrade Miguel, and our comrade Orante for their speeches and giving us strategies, right, of how we can resist in this house of resistance, because there's a legacy here, there's a narrative of people in resistance of all shapes and sizes. So I want to talk to you from El Frente Independentista Boricua, and our organization, our intentions are to bring together people who are common ideology of independence of Puerto Rico. We want decolonization, but with independence, nothing else. And I think there's been a mistake in Puerto Rico and here in the diaspora that they think decolonization should be solved to statehood or Estado Libre Asociado. No. Decolonization we can reach out Uhuru is through independence, and that's what we're calling for in El Frente. So El Frente is a coalition of organizations, grassroots, political parties, and we've been in existence since 2018. And so we're trying to create this unity of people together, even though some of us have different political ways of how to reach that independence. It should not stop us to come together in our commonality, which is we want independence.
So I think that's one of the things that we can offer in terms of the strategy here. But I want to talk to you about a strategy that has been used in Puerto Rico since the 1930s with regard to the FBI or the grand jury, which is a form of resistance that is based on political principle. And this political principle was established by national hero Don Pedro Albizu Campo, who said that we have to exercise retraimiento. And what retraimiento is non-collaboration. You do not collaborate in any way possible with the enemy and all its institutions. You do not collaborate with Yankee imperialism. You do not collaborate with their institutions and agencies. And this principle of non-collaboration, of retraimiento, was the backbone of the Puerto Rican independence movement. It became the spinal cord of how everyone else was going to handle repression from the United States and their lackeys. And one of the persons who put it in practice was Juan Antonio Correger. As member of the Nationalist Party, he was Secretary General of the Nationalist Party. Correger was summoned, a subpoena was handed to him that he had to produce the names of every member of the Nationalist Party. And what Juan Antonio Correger said, I do not collaborate with you. I'm not going to do the handover of the membership of my party. And for that, Don Juan was incarcerated and sent out of Puerto Rico to a prison in Atlanta, Georgia. And he was the first to exercise that political principle, that spinal cord, that gave us the spinal cord of how to resist repression in Puerto Rico. Now, in Puerto Rico, we have suffered surveillance in the 1930s. That's why we have, they call it el carpeteo, which was to keep files on every person in Puerto Rico who was part of the independence movement. We have suffered mass incarceration in the 30s and 50s. And how have we resisted that? Well, in the 50s was because they passed a law in Puerto Rico, which was like similar to the Smith Act here in the United States, which prohibited and made it a crime to have a Puerto Rican flag or to even speak about independence. That was called La Ley de la Mordaza, the gag law. And with that, how do we resist that? Well, did people stop talking about independence? Did they stop talking about the right to have a Puerto Rican flag? And how the diaspora responded to that law, it created the Puerto Rican parade, which the only flag in the parade is the Puerto Rican flag. And we see that every year. So resistance, one of the things we ask all our speakers is, how do we resist FBI repression? We use non-collaboration. We use the principle of retraimiento. And that is the same principle we also use against the federal grand juries, which use the grand juries as a patron of our people. And this happened here in New York in 2006, when after Filiberto Octavio was killed, assassinated by a military operative from Washington, D.C., issued by Washington. People after that, all the stuff they found in his house, where they began to harass Puerto Rican independence movement. And they subpoena 3 comrades of ours here in New York, the young Puerto Ricans, Tania Frontera, Torres, and I can't remember the other one. But anyway, everyone there, they were young people, and they went back to our history and said, we're not going to collaborate, and they took the position of non-collaboration with the FBI, with the subpoenas. And we were very successful. There was subpoena during Christmas time, and the hearing was scheduled for January 6th. And on January 6th, we mobilized 500 people in front of the federal court in Brooklyn. So that's how you resist this type of attack. But I do want to say to everyone here, if the FBI comes to your house and knocks on your door, don't open the door, because the moment you open the door is a way of showing consent. You shut the door, you don't talk to them. If they have they say, oh, we have a order of arrest, tell them to put it underneath the door, but do not open the door and invoke your right to an attorney. Once you do that, they cannot harass anymore. And that's what we did here in New York. We educated our communities, so no one was talking, and the grand jury that was called in January 2006 fell apart. They couldn't do it. Nobody was talking to them. No one was providing information. So you break their backs, their function, you break it. So I just wanted to add that as a part of that. So I want to thank Milagros, Gail, and Oronde for providing the strategy, and I hope that after this talk, we can continue this discussion of strategy and a call to action. What do we do together to make sure the FBI and all their agencies and lobbies get the message? We're not talking to you, do not exist, you do not validate our movement. We validate our movement, we organize in our communities, and we empower our people to resist and to fight for freedom. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Can you hear me? Yes. Well, thanks to Reverend Lebron for hosting this very important event and discussion that we're having here tonight. And I'm happy to be sharing the discussion and to be sharing the platform with Compañera Milagros, with Gail, with Moronde, with Hannah. Today, what we're discussing is the fact that working people and the oppressed are facing stepped-up FBI and other federal government assaults on constitutional freedoms that we've won in struggle over decades. Our fellow panelists have already told us a little bit about the FBI targeting the Juan Cruz Rivera Brigade, and also several U.S. Cuban Solidarity activists in the U.S. The FBI raids on the African People's Socialist Party, accusing them of being agents of the Russian government in order to victimize them in the response to these crimes. The IRS attempted to revoke IFCO's tax-exempt status, which IFCO successfully pushed back. Congratulations, Gail. And Senator Rubio's witch-hunting call for the FBI to investigate the Puente Zamora and Carlos Lasso as so-called unregistered agents, foreign agents for Cuba. The FBI is no friend of working people. That's true both whether it's attacks like these or whether it's FBI operations against reactionary or corrupt individuals and groups. We know that attacks on the rights of anyone will be turned against the working class and the oppressed. And that's the verdict of history. There's a long record of FBI assaults on our rights and a proud history of resistance. Anna was talking about the 1930s. In 1939, the U.S. rulers were preparing to enter World War II to make the world safe for U.S. imperialist profits. President Franklin Roosevelt signed an executive decree transforming the FBI into a federal, centralized political police. And he instructed it to focus on, quote, subversive activity. By 1942, the FBI was getting reports on union and political activities from 24,000 police snitches in 4,000 factories and mines across the United States. The FBI agents raided homes and framed up and imprisoned 7 leaders of the Midwest Teamsters Union, involved in a campaign to organize what ended up being 250,000 long-distance truck drivers and related workers. In 1941, the FBI raided the Socialist Workers' Party's Minneapolis headquarters, Minneapolis being the center of the big union drive and battles. They indicted 29 Teamster and SWP leaders under the thought-controlled Smith Act that Anna mentioned. And they sent 18 of them to prison for, quote, conspiring to advocate the overthrow of the government by force and violence. Later, in the 1940s, the federal government railroaded 11 Communist Party leaders to prison, also under the same Smith Act. During World War II, the Roosevelt government also framed up Pedro Albizu Campos and 60 other Nationalist Party leaders for their intransigent fight for the independence of Puerto Rico. They too were convicted on charges of seditious, quote, seditious conspiracy. Now, Washington offered to free Albizu and his comrades if they suspended their pro-independence activity during the war. Every single one of them said no. In 1973, the Socialist Workers' Party filed a lawsuit against the FBI and several other cop agencies. Combined with a broad public campaign, the lawsuit won the release of thousands of secret files. It was the first major exposure of COINTELPRO programs, which targeted the Socialist Workers' Party, the Communist Party, Black rights groups, Malcolm X, the Puerto Rican independence movement, and others. After a 13-year fight in 1986, a federal judge ruled that the FBI's spying and destruction operations were illegal, a violation of constitutional freedoms. This was a victory for the rights of everyone, and there are books on the table that will tell you the story of that fight. Of course, the federal government, under both Democrats and Republicans, has never stopped using its political police, as our other panelists explained in detail. Just as an example, in 1998, the Clinton administration framed up the Cuban Five, who spent years in prison for protecting Cuba from US-based violence. The Obama administration expanded wiretapping and resurrected the Espionage Act to victimize reporters and others. And now we're seeing the FBI targeting the Cuba Solidarity Movement in Puerto Rico and the United States, the Uhuru Movement, and others. This record also shows why the recent raid by the heavily armed FBI and Secret Service agents on the Trump estate in Florida should also be opposed. Working people and the oppressed cannot applaud the FBI when the cops trample on constitutional freedoms, no matter who the target is. Because if they get away with it, attacks on their own capitalist opponents, you know they're going to go after us even more brazenly. The employer's government and both their parties will use everything from strikebreakers to cops to undermine our struggles against what we're going through, the growing economic and social disasters and wars of the American rulers. We must oppose all government attacks on constitutional rights. The Cuba Solidarity Committee in Puerto Rico is setting a good example by refusing to speak to the FBI, by publicly and courageously refusing to be intimidated. And they show that if we explain the facts, we can win broad support in this fight and win. Thank you very much.
Guys, repeat after me. Love. Love. Power. Transformation. Solidarity. Uhuru. Freedom. Libertad. All of these are words, libertad. All these are words that everyone has said in all of their speeches. That is the constant thing, solidarity. What has been the main thing? If you come for one of us, you come for all of us. That is the main way that we stand up against these forces that try to take it away. I know it's a little late, but we want to try to take some burning questions that folks may have here for like the next 10 to 20 minutes or so. Is that good for folks? Who would like to ask a question? We're going to open up the Q&A now. To the panel, just raise your hand if there are any burning questions out there for our panelists. No, I see. We have one person here. I'm going to give you the mic. You just say your name and if you're in an organization, and then ask your question. Everybody use the mic.
I'm a member of the Brigade. I went to Cuba since July. Saludo Pilar, member of the panelists, and the people present. Basically, I was surprised about the Cuban people because they are my people. It's like in Puerto Rico, the only thing that they are organized. And they are organized from the most poor area. There's a lot of cleanliness all over, and people are taking care of themselves. in every place there's a doctor 24/7. They call Cuba a failed state. Well, how can you compare that with the United States and Puerto Rico? Básicamente lo que estoy diciendo, yo soy miembro de la Brigada Republicana, estuve con la compañera Milagro que la organizó. Y fue una experiencia maravillosa porque los cubanos son mi gente, los boricuas. Porque en los barrios, los pueblos más pobres, todos estamos organizados. La diferencia es que en Cuba están bien organizados y el pueblo y el gobierno son el mismo. Mi pregunta es la siguiente. Le llaman a Cuba un estado fallido. Incluso René Pérez, loco, que es mi pana, pero una loquera, digo que es un estado fallido el 21 de julio. ¿Cómo ustedes comparan a Cuba con Puerto Rico y Estados Unidos en el sentido?
Bueno, Artemio, me imagino que tú quieres que la gente conozca lo que nosotros opinamos de Cuba. Nosotros creemos que en estos momentos la humanidad le debe muchas cosas a Cuba, inclusive en pandemia Cuba creó con todo el bloqueo 5 vacunas.
I'm glad to greet Artemio, who's on the brigade. We think the world has a lot to learn from Cuba. One example alone is from the pandemic, where Cuba created 5 vaccines against the virus.
Si no hubiese bloqueo, Cuba estaría superando muchas dificultades que puede tener el pueblo ahora.
If it wasn't for the blockade, Cuba would be overcoming all kinds of problems that they can't right now because of the blockade. That's right.
Ahora, a mí me parece que un estado fallido es los Estados Unidos.
In my opinion, the failed state is the United States.
Donde no hay igualdad social, donde se discrimina a la mujer, se discrimina a los negros, se discrimina a todas las razas, todos los migrantes, donde hay tanta pobreza. A mí eso sí me parece de estado fallido.
Here in the U.S., where there's not social equality, where they discriminate against blacks, where they discriminate against women, where there is no social justice, all the poverty that exists here. If you ask me, that's the failed state.
Y en el caso de Puerto Rico, que es una colonia de los Estados Unidos, que es la vitrina que han tratado de demostrarle al mundo.
Puerto Rico is a colony. They try to make it the showcase for the world.
Vitrina que hace rato se rompió.
But that showcase, the window's been broken.
Está bastante fallido cuando hay tanto desempleo, una junta de control fiscal que es la que decide lo que se puede hacer en el país, que hace 5 años hubo el huracán María. Hace 5 años hubo el huracán María, todavía no se ha resuelto ese problema. Viene otro huracán y la gente tiene que estar.
There's so much unemployment. They imposed a fiscal control board. 5 years ago, we had the hurricane. They never resolved the problems that resulted from that Hurricane Maria, and then another hurricane comes, and we still have all the same.
Pues en nuestro país hay un país fallido, pero hay una gran resistencia.
And our country is a failed country, but there's tremendous resistance.
En estos momentos uno tiene que agradecer a los nacionalistas, a los maestros, a las maestras, a los artistas.
We want to thank the nationalists, the teachers, the artists.
Que resistieron, hablaron en español y han resistido por muchas cosas. La cuestión cultural en Puerto Rico es muy fuerte.
They've resisted in many different ways. The cultural movement in Puerto Rico is very strong.
Pero también tenemos que recordar que Puerto Rico, un país pequeño, logró sacar la Marina Guerra de los Estados Unidos del mismo municipio de Brigade junto a la solidaridad internacional y con ustedes.
We have to remember that Puerto Rico, a tiny country, managed to get the U.S. Military out of the case in a successful struggle.
O sea, que hemos demostrado que el gobierno de los Estados Unidos, el imperio, es un estado fallido porque no hemos podido integrar totalmente.
So we have to say that imperialism is a failed state because they haven't been able to just impose their will anywhere they want.
Y luchamos por la independencia de Puerto Rico, por la justicia social, no para ser tan solos, sino para sumarnos al resto de las naciones.
We are fighting for independence. We are fighting for our sovereignty, not just for ourselves, but to be able to join ourselves with other people around the world.
¿Te respondí?
Yeah.
you. Yes, over here.
Yeah, Uhuru.
Okay, dame un break para que prepare el punto.
Yeah, in that question, or just that, let me just tell you what we want to do coming up that you participate in. This question about Cuba being a failed state as just opposed to the United States. The question is, it's a question of socialism versus capitalism. And even Castro said when they was criticizing socialism in Cuba, he said, where has capitalism been successful in the Middle East? Where has it been successful in Africa? Where has it been successful in South America? Everywhere you see capitalism, you see oppression, exploitation, wars and rumors of wars. And the needs of people are never met anywhere. And they use the people to fight in these wars, used as cannon fodder to maintain our own oppression.
That's right. That's right.
Like I said in my bio, I was a member of the U.S. military. I had a uniform on. Trying to, when the U.S. was trying to colonize Vietnam. You know what I mean? I didn't know any better when I went in, because I went in trying to not be drafted. After my student deferment ran out, I knew the token was right behind that. And I joined a part of the military. I felt, I'd rather be in than the others, but they all the same. And you participate in the same role, no matter where you are or what you do. You're participating in assisting your enemy to colonize your friends. And the Vietnamese was trying to teach us that, even on the battlefield, that we had no business being there, and we should have been back home in the Black Liberation Movement. You know what I mean? And that story hasn't really been told about the black troops in Vietnam and how they helped turn that war around. It wasn't just what was going on here, but it was in land and people who, was giving orders that were going to get people killed, they themselves didn't make it back to the barracks. There was the RPG flag was flying around on the bases, and people doing demonstrations talking about free Angela Davis. So the movement was there and it was there. That's why I gave my consciousness that. You know what I mean? And the purpose was to come home and join the Black Panther Party. But by that time, Puerto had them in disarray. So that didn't happen, and I didn't get back into it till, again, the African Social Party. In response to the FBI attack on us, in November 5th and 6th in Washington, D.C., we have in our Black is Back Coalition Black People's March on the White House. And we're going to put out here tonight for anybody who want to go down with us to participate in the march on Saturday and a conference on Sunday. You know what I mean? And we have a couple of seats available if people want to go down. You can go to our table over there and talk to the comrades over there. If you're interested in helping support us as we take this march and take it to the White House. Where white people are.
Thank you, thank you. We have a question over here.
Buenas noches. Yo soy cubana y vengo invitada con mi compañero, vivo en Miami, Y no es una pregunta, sino que quiero agradecerle a todos los compañeros que están aquí y a todos los de alrededor del mundo. Okay.
You want her to say she
She says, hello everybody, I'm so glad to be here. I'm a Cuban and I come from Florida, and she wants to appreciate that we're having this event here. Quiero agradecer a todas las personas que están aquí por el amor que sienten por Cuba y por toda la solidaridad que ustedes tienen. She wants to show her appreciation for everyone here who has shown love for Cuba and the solidarity we have with Cuba. Que desde chiquita yo a través de los años siempre he oído a los pastores por la paz que tiene está la iglesia de Lucio Walker casi en la esquina de mi casa y siempre quise conocer a esa persona. She's giving a shout out to the Pastors for Peace because since she was a little girl, she heard about them and the kind of work they do in Cuba. So shout out to Lucius Walker and Gail Walker here for their work. En nombre de todos los cubanos que estamos alrededor del mundo, le damos las gracias por toda la ayuda y todo lo que han hecho con mi patria. So in the name of the Cuban people that is all over the world, she wants to thank us for the work that we are doing on behalf of the Cuban people in Cuba. Otra cosa que quería decirle al señor que dijo que decían que Cuba es un estado fallido, que muchas cosas que no se han dicho aquí, Cuba es un orgullo para el mundo entero porque Cuba no tiene un solo niño que se haya muerto de hambre y que esté en las calles pidiendo comida, ni en los semáforos vendiendo un caramelo para sobrevivir. She wants to respond to Artemio's question about whether Cuba is a failed state or not. She's saying that Cuba is not a failed state. There's no children in Cuba in the corner selling or begging for food. All the children are well fed in Cuba, and I just want to have a free education. And the level of literacy is 99% in Cuba. You know what the level of literacy here in the United States is? 37%. También tenemos el programa de educación desde los niños, desde ciclos infantiles hasta la universidad, que es totalmente gratis. No se le cobra a ningún muchacho un dinero porque pase su escuela y tenga una carrera. Again, she's saying how proud the Cuban people are for having free education from preschool all the way to college level. You know, even to get a professional career, everything is free. You don't have to pay one penny. Y también somos un orgullo porque Cuba, a través de los años, desde que fundó la revolución, el 1 de enero de 1959, Cuba se ha solidarizado con todos los países apoyando en la medicina donde quiera que haya un terremoto, un problema con las personas. Ahí están las brigadas médicas que por nada van allí, dan su apoyo, dan su vida y hasta muchos han perdido la salud y todo por entrar en lugares que los cubanos jamás han pisado. Cuba no es un estado fallido, eso lo dice mucha gente, pero nadie que tenga una canasta básica, por ejemplo, donde todos, aunque sea, cogen un pedazo de pan y que en sus manos, yo creo que eso no es un estado fallido. Evidence that Cuba is not a failed state, go to the evidence of Cuba provides free medical services to all the Cubans, but also has been in solidarity with all the peoples of the world by providing medical assistance in every disaster, even in the pandemic. The Cuban people are very proud of sharing their medical ability, their medical services with the rest of the world. That's definite evidence of not a failed state.
We have time for one more question, really. So, who has a good juicy question that will close the night? I don't know. I don't know whose hand went up first. I'm sorry. So, maybe, okay, we have time for 2 questions, but really quick questions, no commentary, questions. Okay? And we're gonna hear both questions, and then we're gonna respond. Okay? Your hand first, okay? All right. So here's a question.
Siempre me saludamos al evento, somos miembros de la campaña dominicana de solidaridad con Cuba y estamos aquí representando dicha entidad. A Milagro que le dé toda la información de cómo las personas pueden ir hacia Cuba para que vean en realidad lo que es Cuba. También aquí tenemos la Brigada Biliceremo, que también pueden tener comunicación para ir a Cuba. He ido más de 10 veces, sabemos la realidad y sabemos que Cuba es la potencia a nivel de Latinoamérica en todos los sentidos. ¡Viva Cuba y viva su revolución y su solidaridad!
Well, that wasn't a question. However, it's very important. There are various brigades here that do trips to Cuba. We have Milagros who does the Brigade for Puerto Rico. We got the Caravan Passes for Peace. We have the Seremos Brigade. So if you haven't been to Cuba, there's no excuse. You have your different ways to get there, okay? Last question.
This is a real question. I want to ask the panelists about the attempt right now amongst many people who call themselves liberals, progressives, parts of the left in the United States to refurbish the reputation of the FBI, of Comey, of Mueller, of the current FBI, that these are the defenders of our national security. So, yes, so I just, that's my question. What do people think about that effort? It's a big time effort right now.
We're gonna have one bonus question before we respond to that one.
We need a summary of that question though.
Or maybe that needs to be had after the panel.
Peace, comrades. My name is Lenny Sekou. I'm a member of the Party for Socialism and Liberation. We've seen that there's kind of resurgence of interest in socialism for young people. My question for you, in tandem with this international solidarity that we must have with Cuba, Puerto Rico, and other countries in the global south, what are some struggles that you see as necessary for young people around the world to intervene in these times?
Well, I just want to say that in terms of, I'm an educator here in New York, so, and I bring the issue of socialism in my classes all the time. I teach Latin American Caribbean studies, and I tell my students from day one, what you're going to hear in these classes is not what you've heard before. You've never heard about a lot of things I'm going to give you the Latin American perspective. We need to look at Africa as their struggle. We need to look at Latin America, South America, Africa, the south of the globe and their struggles, because they're really, the answers are there. It is their struggle. We can't look to the north. We gotta look to the center and south of the planet, because that's where the struggles for socialism and freedom are really taking place. So, as an educator, I do this every day in my classes. I, teach my students. In fact, some of my students are here. present today. And they were with Milagros yesterday. So I think that we cannot show fear to talk about these issues even in the classroom. We have to bring it even at the early age as well. You know, we have to find the language, correct language, so that students can understand it. And that's my take on it. But definitely, we have, students know capitalism has not been in their favor. They know their families are suffering under capitalism. They feel it in their bones, and they just don't understand it. Why? And why is there injustice and inequality, lack of jobs? During this pandemic, our students suffered severely. So why did it suffer? What? Well, during this pandemic, people got poorer, the richer got richer. That's right. So that's how, you know, we need to break it down and bring it to the classroom. If you're a teacher or if you're at your workplace, you need to have these discussions with people, take, you know, moments to explain that a different economic system is possible and that we can build a better world and a better society for everyone to enjoy the, you know, to share in the richness of our land.
I just want to know, just real quickly, to say resistance, right, is at the center of all of these movements. I can't say enough about just getting outside of your own comfort zone, traveling. There's nothing like just visiting other parts of the globe, and I think anytime that we're able to see the direct impact of U.S. foreign policy in various parts of the world, you start to make the links. It starts to make sense. I think the readings, the things that all of us, not just young, old, in between, need to continue to do to educate ourselves is a constant. It's a constant struggle that we've got to engage in because we are misinformed every step of the way from cradle to grave. You know, so we have to really go beyond what is fed to us, and we have to seek knowledge in other ways. And really, the most, for me, in my little bit of time on this earth, I think the most important and impactful way of doing that has been to travel, to talk to people in different parts of the world, and to try to make some of those links, and just really be critical thinkers, right? To just push beyond what we have been really force-fed, because it's hard to kind of shake that misinformation that's been so prevalent, but we have to do all we can to really kind of push beyond that. So I know that's not necessarily talking about specific areas, but I think that the idea of just trying to get outside of our own comfort zone is really critically important.
Do you have any other comments?
Yes.
Yeah, if you wanted to make a comment.
Two comments. One, I just wanted to address that question about Cuba again. When Africa was in its throes of winning national liberation, and it called out, it was Cuba that answered.
That's right.
It was Cuba that answered. And they didn't just send money, they sent their young people with AKs in defense of the revolutions in Africa, in Angola, Mozambique, in Grenada, when they used that false thing that the medical students in Grenada was being harassed, and the Cubans fought the U.S. Marines all the way to they had no more ammunition. All right? So in terms of its internationalism, its real solidarity, it's not just a question of statements, it's a question of deeds. And Cuba has always done that, medically, economically, and militarily. The other thing about, I think, the education process for young people have to be internationalized. You can't have them cornered in these bourgeois education institutions, teaching about dead presidents who have lied about, etc. They have to understand the world, and we have to prepare them to govern. We have to understand for real that these are our future leaders. And we got to give them opportunities to travel to Cuba and wherever else transformations are going on, so they can see how that is and how young people, just like in the 60s, the Black Panther Party was an organization primarily of young people, teenagers, etc. So we have to get them early and not be afraid to talk about socialism versus capitalism and talk about revolution and freedom, etc. To inspire them so that they get skills to transform the world rather than making war in it. Ooh.
I wanted to address the question about the efforts to clean up the image of the FBI and the political police. Is that better? You know, in the 70s and 80s, through the explosion of the struggles for Black freedom, the movement against the Vietnam War, the Watergate exposures, the eyes of millions of people were open to the crimes committed by the political police, by the FBI, by the CIA, all the truth that started to come out and the discrediting of the U.S. government and its claim to be defending democracy. You know, they were the ones who were trampling on the rights of working people and others. And so the U.S. rulers need the political police, especially as the social crisis gets worse and there's more resistance and more struggles by working people. That's what they need the FBI and a multitude of other agencies, the IRS and the alcohol, tobacco, and firearms bureaus, and a whole range of federal police agencies. And so today, we're seeing a continuation. This didn't begin now. We saw it under Clinton, Obama. Today, and it's a bipartisan thing, but with Biden, backed by liberal Democrats, applauding the use of the FBI to carry out their attacks and their political course, targeting well, it's not a coincidence. What we've been discussing here in just within weeks, the armed raid on the African People's Socialist Party with, the pre-dawn raid with heavily armed agents with a flashbang grenades, the trampling on the Fourth Amendment rights, the drones, trampling on the Fourth Amendment rights to be secure in your home, invading people's homes, okay? What they did with the IFCO, using the IRS to pry into the internal affairs of IFCO and its right to carry out solidarity with Cuba. And then they launched this attack on the armed raid on the Trump estate, and they hope they can get away with it. But they use exactly the same methods, a pre-dawn raid by dozens of heavily armed FBI and Secret Service agents. They refuse to allow any attorneys to witness what they're doing during a 9-hour raid going through the property. They use the Espionage Act as a basis to secure a search warrant. This is something relatively new, resurrecting the use of the Espionage Act. You know they're going to use it against fighters for freedom and for the rights of working people. So that's one example. And this is important. The smearing of political opponents in capitalist politics as Russian agents, trying to get their opponents labeled as unregistered foreign agents. These are threats to the constitutional rights, and they affect us. They affect working people. They're going to use it against us. I'll give you one example. There are tens of thousands of rail workers who are facing brutal working conditions, and their unions have been discussing a rotten contract that doesn't address these problems. and rail workers have been discussing whether to go on strike. And the US government is stepping in and intervening to try to make it, to block the ability of rail workers to go on strike and to fight for better conditions. This is another example of government intervention in the affairs of the unions, just like they use the FBI, claiming they're fighting against corruption, to intervene in the unions like they did in Puerto Rico with the water workers union. In the middle of a strike, they went in, I was there at the time of the water workers strike, and they raided the union headquarters and they interrogated workers. They wouldn't allow lawyers to witness it, all in the name of fighting corruption in the unions. So, as we know, only the union members themselves can deal with questions of union democracy and corruption. You can't rely on the capitalist government to defend democracy or fight against corruption. So these are the conditions that millions of working people face in the United States. And understanding we have to fight independently and not rely on the capitalist government, but on our own strength and our own power and solidarity.
Thank you so much.
So, listen, I don't know, I kind of heard that something that is so right cannot be reformed. I mean, that's the way I understood that. And I think that that's where we're all standing here, in that this is not about reforming anything, it's not about making it look prettier or better. It's about how do we create something new from the root. And I want us to leave this place thinking that, and remembering all these words that we've heard here today. And I come from a tradition where we believe that when two or more are gathered, things can happen. Power is among them, love is among them, solidarity is among them. And so I hope that we can leave this place energized, more committed to the struggle. You know, I hope folks who maybe, if you can't make a trip to Cuba, you're gonna offer a scholarship for our young people to go to Cuba on one of these brigades. I'm gonna throw that out there. Because, you know, some of us have been to Cuba 10 times. There are people out here who want to go to Cuba and who can't. So if you can make a donation to any of these organizations and give scholarships for people to travel, please do so. And with that being said, I just want you to repeat after me. Love. Love. Power. Power. Transformation. Transformation. Solidarity. Solidarity. Love. Love. Power. Transformation. Solidarity. Solidarity. We want it. We want it. Right now. Right now. Right now. Right now. Right now. Right now. Thank you, Lord. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot about an announcement really quick.
October 30th is the anniversary of the 1950 revolution of Puerto Rico. And so we're having a photo exhibit in MIA 13 on Southern Boulevard in the Bronx. Tomorrow we'll be there at 3:30 to 4 o'clock, starting then. And then on Sunday, we'll have an event commemorating that event that will be dedicated to Aleida Centeno, celebrating the revolution of 1950, Sunday at 2 o'clock.
Thank you. El maestro, lo esperamos.
Bien.
I'm gonna get that.
Tropical relief. We're gonna get to this score.